Ferrari approaches the English weekend with a lot of confidence. In Formula One, it's never easy to get everything right, and that's why the Maranello team is in difficulty. We have extensively discussed all the dynamics related to the current state of the SF-24, a car that lost its way after the updates in Spain. The correct working point of the car is lost. The aeromechanical compromise with the current understanding of the car does not exist. For this reason, the prancing horse did a lot of driver-in-the-loop simulator work at the beginning of the week. The data collection is very important, and an organizational plan for the F1 weekend has been scheduled based on it. Carlos Sainz himself reiterated the difficulties Ferrari will face at Silverstone. Yes, because although, unlike Austria, there are 3 free practice sessions in England, the rain remains a threat, to put it bluntly. However, there is no drama, as the team is determined to get the job done regardless of the weather conditions. The first free practice session for the 2024 Formula One British Grand Prix was likely one of the key moments for the remainder of Ferrari's season. The Maranello team, for once blessed by the weather, was able to complete an intensive comparative work program between the two cars. Charles Leclerc took to the track with the more updated version of the SF-24, while Carlos Sainz ran with the aerodynamic configuration that preceded at the Barcelona package. We have already explained why this moment is particularly delicate for the Maranello team, and clearly, the need to quickly find a solution to the emerging problems is such that some free practice sessions must be sacrificed to collect data from the track. Although the lap programs were not perfectly identical between the two drivers, it is possible, by making a careful comparison and weighing the collected data, to draw some conclusions even with only the data available to us, since some trends are sufficiently macroscopic to be noticed even without the details from load cells and various sensors on the cars. First of all, it must be stated that even from the simple onboard images, some differences were easily visible to the naked eye, foremost among them the aerodynamic bouncing, which was abundantly present on Charles Leclerc's car and practically absent on Carlos Sainz's. The impression is that in corners with a fairly constant radius, the phenomenon is present but less impactful, but in the entire central sector, the difference in car behavior is clear, with the rear end tending to become unstable in the middle of the curve, precisely where the bouncing becomes more pronounced. The impression, therefore, is that one of the reasons the Maranello engineers have not been able to predict the recurrence of the phenomenon or see it in wind tunnel simulations is that there is a strong dynamic component of the car that triggers it, while under stable conditions, the problem loses at least an order of magnitude. The bumps in Barcelona and the undulations in Austria evidently acted as catalysts for triggering the bouncing, while the very smooth asphalt at Silverstone helps the SF-24 defend against the phenomenon, until the central sector is reached where the violence of cops first, and immediately after the continuous load transfer of the Maggots-Beckett's Chapel sequence puts the system in evident crisis. The data broadly confirms what has been observed so far. We took the readings of the best lap on hard tires from both Ferrari drivers and, as usual, compared them. Looking at the telemetry data from the first free practice session for the British Grand Prix, the first premise is clearly that the two drivers completed the lap with significantly different power unit mappings, with Carlos Sainz able to push almost to the maximum level of the engine, evidently to collect data under extreme conditions. This is evident from the first braking at turn 3, and then throughout the exit of turn 5 onto the straight towards Brooklands and Luffield. In the latter turn, turn 7, it is noticeable that at medium-low speeds, in a long corner with a fairly constant lateral load, the updated version of Charles Leclerc's SF-24 produces a greater amount of aerodynamic load than Carlos Sainz's Ferrari, confirming what Ferrari itself stated on the eve of the Spanish Grand Prix, that the new package brought an increase in load even at medium-low speeds. However, from the exit of Luffield onwards, troubles begin for the Monegasque driver and for the updates on the Ferrari car. At Copse, the Monegasque driver passes through 5 km per hour slower than his teammate and lifts his foot off the accelerator significantly more than Carlos Sainz, and then at the entrance of Maggots, the hardest stretch begins, with the Spaniard suffering from less load at Beckett's, but having much greater stability of the car. So much so that the passage at Chapel onto the Hangar Straight sees the Spaniard passing through 9 km per hour faster than the Monegasque. In the next turn, Stowe, however, the load of the updated SF-24 reappears, considering that the passage through the challenging turn 15 of the English track is a fairly clear indicator of the aerodynamic load levels of the cars. Once again, a smooth track and a corner with a soft, constant radius slow down the onset of aerodynamic bouncing and allow Charles Leclerc to pass 6 km per hour faster, then entering the last stretch and the final low-speed chicane, where mechanics take precedence over aerodynamics. And once again, Carlos Sainz finds greater performance. The behavior at turn 16, 17, but also previously seen at turn 4, seems to indicate that the difficulties due to aerodynamic bouncing force a non-ideal mechanical setup in an attempt to make the phenomenon at least manageable, and therefore Carlos Sainz's car appears to have smoother and more natural passages in particularly slow sections. It is clear that Ferrari has a problem to solve, and this session confirmed that work at Maranello is actively underway. We will see if the weather, threatening rain, will allow a clean second session, how Ferrari will take advantage of it to try to advance in their understanding of the package, and how the Maranello team will work to find a solution. Looking back at the first free practice session for the British Grand Prix with a focus on Ferrari's rivals, Lando Norris wants to prove that Austria is forgotten, and the McLaren driver is ready to fight for the top in front of his home fans. The Briton was the fastest in the first free practice session at Silverstone with a time of 1.27, 420 on soft tires. The performance is impressive, being 1.2 seconds faster than the best lap time set last year. The MCL-38 was also very consistent in the long run, possibly running with less fuel than others, simulating the second part of the race. The Woking team placed Oscar Piastri in third position. The Australian was 2/10 behind his teammate, but had to abandon the session due to a power steering issue that forced him to stop his car in the pit lane entry. Between the two McLaren cars in qualifying trim, Lance Stroll stood out with Aston Martin. The Canadian was just 134 thousandths from the top, leaving Fernando Alonso in sixth place with the other AMR24 car. An important comparison is Max Verstappen, who is fourth with Red Bull. The Dutchman set a time of 1.27, 729 on hard tires, then focused on the long run with mediums, never using the soft tires. The gap from the top indicates that the RB20 single-seater, with its modified floor, seems very competitive. The two Mercedes are in 5th and 7th positions, with George Russell ahead of Lewis Hamilton. The silver-black arrows worked with the medium compound. The Spielberg winner seemed more comfortable than the 7-time world champion, as he was looking for the right balance by frequently adjusting the front adjustable flap. Nico Hülkenberg, with the old Haas, is 11th, while Ferrari Jr. Ollie Bearman, with the new one recognizable by the radiator intake and the new floor, is 14th, separated by almost half a second. The Ferrari Driver Academy member has just been confirmed as part of Haas's lineup for the 2025 Formula One Championship. Both used the red tires, but the young Englishman didn't push to the limit, preferring to gather useful data.